I hadn't stepped inside the house in over 20 years. The key still worked. It clicked the same way it did when I was 13, trying to sneak back in after running 3 miles barefoot down the railroad tracks to escape the sound of fists breaking skin. Back then, the lock was the only thing in that house that didn't scream. Now, it groaned as I opened it, as if even the door remembered. The scent hit me first. Not rot, though the kitchen had its share of mold, but something deeper. Old sweat in the drywall, sawdust fused with nicotine, the ghost of turpentine. The place smelled like Dad's workshop, like his flannel shirt stiff with grime, like fear itself had soaked into the wood grain and never left. The living room was just as he'd left it. Couch, threadbare and sagging. Recliner with the broken lever. Coffee table with a scorch mark from the time he fell asleep with a cigarette. The kind of place that made your shoulders tighten without knowing why. I walked past it all, straight to the tool shed. It was still there, the hammer, hanging on the wall like a crucifix, handle dark with oil and age, steel head chipped at the edges, like it had spent decades arguing with stubborn nails and winning. I took it down. My hands didn't shake, but my chest ached like something had been waiting to scream inside me for a long, long time. I started in the hallway. The walls were lined with paneling he'd nailed in himself. Every nail pulled had a story. That one. 1992. Thanksgiving. I spilled gravy on his boots. He knocked me into the wall so hard my tooth cracked. That nail held up the frame he threw. I pried it out slow. The sound of it coming loose was like a sigh, like something being set free. Next one. By the closet. Winter 89. My sister tried to wear makeup for the first time. Said she looked like Mom. He said she looked like a whore. I still remember her scream, not the sound, the shape of it. Sharp, like glass. I worked the nails loose, one by one. By dinner my hands were raw. I didn't stop. That night I slept on the floor, in the room that used to be mine. The mattress was long gone, just bare boards and dust, and the familiar groan of the wind pushing at the window. But I slept, better than I had in years. Day 2, I took down the cabinets, same ones he built after Mom died. I remember watching him measure, cut, sand, stain. His hands moved like they knew what beauty was. Then those same hands would close around my arm like a vice when I said the wrong thing. He was always building something and breaking something in the same breath. The worst was the closet under the stairs. We used to call it the crawl space. It was where he sent us when we talked back. No light, no heat, just the sound of rats and your own heartbeat for hours. I opened it. It smelled like old piss and plywood. But the air wasn't the same. It didn't have that weight anymore. I stood inside it, let the door close behind me, waited. Nothing happened. That's when I cried for the first time. The memories didn't come in order. Trauma doesn't follow a timeline. One moment I was 17, ducking under a flying beer bottle. The next I was 9, laughing because he let me hold the drill and said I did it right. I clung to those good ones like they made me less broken, like proof that he wasn't always a monster meant I hadn't imagined the rest. But monsters aren't made of only teeth and claws. Sometimes they're made of work boots and wedding rings and the smell of fresh cedar. I found a photo in the attic. Me, him and Ellie. 1985. He's got his arms around both of us, smiling. But I know that smile. It's the same one he wore before he hit. The way a snake might smile before it strikes. I almost threw it out. Instead, I pinned it to the wall. Above it I wrote in pencil, "He built this house with love and hate and hands that didn't know the difference." I kept pulling nails. Each one came out with a little less resistance, like the house was letting go, piece by piece. Like maybe, if I tore out enough of what he'd made, I'd find something of mine beneath it, something worth keeping. I didn't know yet that my son was coming, that he'd ask me why I was tearing down what Grandpa built, that I'd see the flicker in his eyes, the one that looked too much like mine and too much like his. That part was still ahead. For now, I just pulled the next nail, and then the next, and then the next. I woke up to the sound of birds. It startled me. For years, morning meant alarm clocks, the low buzz of fluorescent lights in a city office, my wife's rustling in bed beside me, the click of a coffee maker. Not bird song, not that kind of silence between their calls, the kind that holds you like a cradle, asking nothing. I had forgotten that peace could sound like this. There was frost on the window. My breath came out in clouds. I could hear the house shifting around me, like bones stretching after a long sleep. Breakfast was a protein bar and instant coffee. I ate sitting on the floor, staring at the hole where the cabinets had been. The studs behind them were scarred, notched in places. His handwriting was still there, little measurements and notes scribbled in Sharpie like time capsules. Cut 2x4 to 37.5, check plumb, tighten joint. He left instructions for himself like reminders that order could be made from chaos. But even then, he didn't follow his own blueprints, not with wood, not with us. That day I tackled the living room. He'd built a mantel after Mom died, said we needed a place to put her urn. It was never about her, it was about control, making grief decorative, manageable, hiding the mess behind oak and varnish. I swung the hammer, the mantel cracked. Behind it was drywall so thin it crumbled under my fingers. He'd built it fast, careless, like grief made his hands sloppy. Under the plaster was something else, a hole, and inside a box, wooden, old, nailed shut. I sat back on my heels and stared at it. My hands didn't move, my breath held still. The house had secrets, and I just pulled back a layer of skin. I took it outside. The cold air helped. I pried it open like I was afraid of what it might say. Inside were photos, hundreds, Polaroids, stacks of them. Some of them were of us, Ellie and me, playing in the yard, blowing out candles, holding up school projects, smiling like we didn't know yet, like love could erase what came next. But others were of him, younger, in the Navy, with my mother, at a wedding, drinking in the garage. Always the same look in his eyes, like joy was a thing he was pretending to understand, like it itched. At the bottom of the box was a letter, unopened, addressed to me, to my son, if you ever come back. I held it for a long time, then I put it back in the box, covered it up, buried it in the yard where the garden used to be. I didn't read it, not yet. I wasn't ready to hear his voice in my head again. I had my own ghosts to speak to first. That afternoon, I pulled out the floorboards in the dining room. Underneath, I found a crawl space, more like a grave, dusty, dark, and filled with forgotten things. A broken tricycle, rusted coffee cans, a torn flannel shirt that still smelled like Old Spice and sweat. I crawled in, sat there, let the dark have me. I remembered Ellie's voice in the dark when we were kids, how she used to hum to keep from crying. Soft little tunes, always the same few notes. She said if she hummed, she couldn't hear him yelling, that the humming made her invisible. I started humming too, 40 years old and humming in the dark like a child. That's when I heard the knock. I thought I imagined it. A soft tap, then again, louder. I crawled out, breath short. He was there, my son, Milo, 14, gangly, backpack slung over one shoulder, looking at the house like it was some haunted thing. Mum said you'd be here. She said I should visit. His voice was flat, like he'd practiced it. I didn't hug him, didn't know how. Instead I nodded. You hungry? He shrugged. We ate gas station sandwiches on the tailgate of my truck. The wind cut through our coats, but neither of us complained. I watched him, every movement, every twitch of his mouth, every time his eyes narrowed or his jaw set. I was searching for me in him, and I found it. Too much of it, the way he clenched his fists when he was frustrated, the way he went quiet when I asked how school was, the way he chewed the inside of his cheek when he didn't want to cry. I remembered doing the same. That night, he slept in my old room. I laid on the floor beside the fireplace, wrapped in blankets, listening for sounds. I heard him turn over, cough once, then settle. He slept. I didn't. In the morning, I found him sitting on the porch steps. Why are you doing this? He asked. I didn't answer at first. Then I said, because if I don't tear it down, I'll end up building it again. He looked at me like he almost understood. Then he said something that shook me. I get mad sometimes, and I don't know why, and I punch the wall in my room. I don't want to, but it's like it just happens. And then I feel sick after. My throat closed up. I couldn't speak. I just reached over and touched his shoulder. It's not your fault, I said, but it's your responsibility. He didn't answer. But he didn't pull away. That day we started tearing down the living room wall, together. He held the flashlight while I pulled the nails. I showed him how to do it without splintering the wood. I let him try. He cursed when he missed. I laughed. For the first time in a long time, I laughed. He smiled, and I saw something else in him. Not just me. Something better. We worked in silence after that, but it wasn't a heavy silence. It was full, like the house itself had softened. Just a little, like it was starting to forgive us. The walls came down faster now, like they wanted to fall. Every nail we pulled felt like it was loosening something in both of us. And still, I hadn't read the letter. I didn't know if I ever would. But for now, I had Milo, and he had me. And we had the sound of nails being pulled, one by one from the bones of the past. We worked for 3 days without saying much. Milo didn't ask about the house anymore. He just followed me into each room, like he already understood what we were doing, as if the demolition was its own kind of confession, a wordless apology. We moved to the upstairs hallway, the place where every door used to slam, where voices rose like storms, where silence used to feel like warning. I remembered the night Ellie ran away. It was right here, outside the linen closet. She was 17. He'd grabbed her by the wrist and slammed her into the wall so hard her head bounced. I was 15, frozen in the dark. She looked at me through tears and said, "Run next time. Please, just run." She was gone by morning. We never saw her again. I pulled a strip of molding off the wall, A line of nails, perfectly spaced, one by one they came out, slow and screaming. Milo handed me a new pry bar we picked up from the hardware store in town. He didn't say anything. He didn't need to. He knew. Somehow he knew that every plank we tore away was a piece of memory exercised. That afternoon he found the old box of VHS tapes in the hall closet, labeled in thick marker, Christmas 1986, Dad's birthday, Ellie's dance recital. He held them like they were fossils. "What's this?" "Evidence," I said. We set up my old laptop and the adapter I'd brought, hooked the cables up. The screen flickered to life like it was waking from a coma. The first tape was a birthday. Balloons, Mom smiling. Then came him, drunk, barely hiding it, slurring through a toast, yelling when someone dropped a plate. Milo watched in silence. I tried to pause it. "Leave it," he said. I did. He needed to see it, all of it, not because I wanted him to hate his grandfather, but because pretending the man was only one thing is how I ended up with splinters in my soul. The next day, I took Milo to the lake, the same lake where Dad used to take me fishing, where I learned how to tie knots and gut trout and pretend I was safe because he hadn't been drinking yet. We sat on the dock, tossed stones. "I don't think I like you very much," Milo said. I nodded. "That's fair, but I think I want to." That cut deeper than anything he could have screamed. I stared at the water, felt my throat tighten again. "I'm trying," I whispered. "I'm trying real hard." He nodded. That night, we burned the tapes in the fire pit out back. One by one, Milo fed them into the flames like sacrificial offerings. We didn't speak. Just watched the plastic curl and warp, watched the smoke rise into the stars, and as the last one blackened and cracked, he said, "Do you think it ever ends? The damage?" I stared at the fire. "I don't think it ends. I think we just decide how far we let it reach." The next room was the master bedroom, his room. I opened the door like I was stepping into a crime scene. Everything was just as I remembered. The heavy oak dresser, the mirror cracked at the corner, the spot on the carpet where his boots used to sit, perfectly aligned. As if chaos could be boxed in with symmetry, Milo stood at the threshold. He didn't come in. I got to work, dismantled the bed first, took apart the headboard. Underneath I found a whiskey bottle wedged in the slats, still half full. I handed it to Milo. "You want to smash it?" He blinked. "Can I?" I nodded. He took it, walked out to the concrete patio, and hurled it as hard as he could. It shattered with a sound that felt like breath. Later, we found his journals in the closet. Moldy, faded. I sat on the floor, turning pages. Line after line of scrawled thoughts. Rage and regret, sometimes in the same paragraph. Entries that ended mid-sentence. Scribbles. A man drowning in his own mind. One entry stood out. "I love them, but I don't know how to be kind. My hands only know how to fix or fight. I wish I had a third option." Milo read over my shoulder. "What does that mean?" I shook my head. "I think it means he knew, and knowing wasn't enough." We didn't keep the journals. We didn't burn them either. We buried them, beneath the old swing set. That night, as we sat by the fire again, Milo asked, "Did you ever hit someone?" The air went dead. My stomach flipped. "Yes." He nodded, looked at the flames. "Not me, though." "No," I said. "Not you." He didn't speak for a long time. Then good. The next morning, he asked to go into the crawl space. I didn't want him to. Every part of me clenched. "Please," he said. "I need to see it." So I let him. He sat in the dark. I sat beside him. We didn't speak. He hummed, and then he said, "It's just a space now." I nodded. It always was. He just made it feel like more. He turned to me. "Can we build something new?" That was the moment it shifted. Something cracked open inside me. Not forgiveness. Not yet. But a door. "Yeah," I said. "We can." That day we started framing a new wall. Not to hide anything, but to build something we could be proud of. Something straight. Something level. He asked about Ellie. She ran. Got out. Smartest of us. "Do you think she'd want to come back?" I sighed. "I don't know, but I think she deserves the choice." He nodded. "Then we'll leave the door open." And we did. The next evening, he handed me something. A letter. Not Dad's. His own. "I wrote it last night, just in case you ever start to become him." My hands shook. "I won't read it, unless I have to," he said. I folded it, put it in my wallet, like a talisman, like armor. That night, I stood at the edge of the property and looked back. The house was quieter now, not just because of the missing walls, but because something inside it had changed. Or maybe it was me. Milo came up beside me. "So what happens next?" I smiled. "We keep pulling nails." And so we did, one by one, all night long. The fourth week began with a storm. We were halfway through stripping the siding from the back of the house when the sky split open. Rain came hard, in sheets, like something was trying to wash the memory off the place. We didn't run. We just stood there, soaked to the bone, watching the wind tear leaves from the trees and fling them across the lawn like confetti at a funeral. Milo grinned. "Think it's trying to help?" Maybe, I said. Or maybe it's just angry too. We moved inside, worked on the upstairs bathroom. The mirror was cracked. I remembered the day he punched it. Ellie had come home late. I'd tried to take the blame. He didn't say a word, just went to the bathroom, looked in the mirror, and smashed it with his fist. There was blood everywhere. He said he hated what he saw, that the face in the mirror wasn't his, but I knew the truth. He saw himself too clearly, and it terrified him. I pulled the mirror down. Behind it, more writing, etched into the drywall with a knife. Make them fear you. Milo saw it, read it out loud, then he spit on it. I handed him a crowbar. He didn't hesitate, tore the wall apart like it owed him something. That night I couldn't sleep. I lay on the floor again, the fire reduced to embers. Milo was out cold upstairs. I stared at the ceiling, wondering if maybe we were just rearranging pain, moving it around like furniture, hoping that if we shifted enough, we'd finally find the right configuration to breathe in. Around 3 a.m. I went outside. The rain had stopped. The sky was clear. I walked to the garden, to the spot where I buried the box. My father's letter still inside. I dug it up. My hands were mud-soaked and trembling when I opened it. The letter was short, just a single page. If you're reading this, it means you came back. I don't know why. Maybe to bury me. Maybe to understand. All I know is I failed. I built a house, but not a home. I raised children, but not a family. I loved you, but it never reached my hands. I'm sorry. I hope you find peace here. I couldn't. No signature. Just that. I stared at it for a long time. I didn't cry. I didn't scream. I just felt empty. And then I tore the letter in half. Then again, and again, until it was confetti too, scattered in the dirt. It wasn't enough, but it was something. The next morning, Milo found me asleep in the truck bed. He didn't ask questions, just handed me coffee and said, "Let's do the kitchen today." So we did. We ripped out the sink, found a family of dead mice behind the molding, their little skeletons curled into each other. I stared at them longer than I should have. "You okay?" he asked. "Yeah," I lied, just thinking. He didn't press. He was learning too. By noon we had stripped the cabinets, peeled back the linoleum. Underneath there was writing again, scrawled in marker across the plywood subfloor, "I am not my father." It was my handwriting, from years ago. I must have written it the first time I left, after that last fight, after he shoved me against the fridge and told me I'd never be a man. I knelt and ran my fingers over the words. Milo stood beside me, silent. "You wrote that?" "Yeah, I guess I needed to believe it. Do you?" I didn't answer right away. "Some days," I said. "Other days, I hear him in my voice, feel him in my fists. It scares the hell out of me." Milo didn't move. Then he sat beside me. "But you stopped, right?" I looked at him. "What do you mean?" "I mean, you came back. You're tearing it down. You're not hitting anybody. That counts." I almost laughed, almost cried. Instead, I just nodded. That afternoon, we went into the attic again. We were looking for old insulation, but we found more than that. A small wooden chest, locked, no key. I grabbed a screwdriver and popped it open. Inside were letters, dozens, all addressed to Mom. None were sent. Some dated back to the 80s, some from right before she died. His handwriting changed over the years, got messier, angrier, softer, then angry again. One letter read, "I don't know how to love without hurting. I wish you'd taught me better, or maybe I wish I hadn't needed you to." I closed the chest. We didn't burn those. Milo said, "Let them stay dead." So we wrapped them in plastic and buried them under the porch. That evening, I cooked dinner for the first time since we arrived. Spaghetti, canned sauce, overcooked noodles. Milo said it was the best meal he'd had in months. I almost believed him. After we ate, he pulled out an old deck of cards. "Wanna play war?" "Sure." We played on the floor by lantern light. He won. Of course he did. He grinned every time I cursed under my breath. When the game ended, he asked, "Do you think he ever loved you?" It wasn't a cruel question, just a child trying to untangle a man. "I think he did," I said. "The only way he knew how, with a hammer instead of hands, with orders instead of arms. Does that make it okay?" "No," I said. "It makes it tragic." That night I dreamed of Ellie. She was standing in the backyard, holding a kite. The sky was grey. The wind pulled at her hair. She looked at me, smiled and said, "It's almost over." When I woke, the house was quiet. Too quiet. I ran upstairs. Milo was gone. His bed was empty. His bag still there. My heart went cold. I checked every room, the shed, the attic. Nothing. Then I saw the note on the table. "Went to get breakfast. Back soon. Don't freak out." I laughed. Actually laughed. Then cursed him. Then laughed again. He came back an hour later, holding 2 bags of egg sandwiches and a 6-pack of orange juice. "Don't say it," he said. "I'm not," I said, "but you owe me a few years of my life back." He grinned. We ate on the porch. Rain threatened again but didn't fall. Milo asked, How do you know when it's enough, when you've torn down enough? I didn't have an answer, but I knew we weren't there yet. So we went back inside, and we pulled the next nail, and then the next, and then the next. We started in the basement. The house sat on a foundation of cinder block and concrete, poured in the late 70s by my father's own hands. I remember watching from the edge of the lot, him covered in sweat, barking at the contractor, his temper already showing, his pride even louder. He poured that concrete like it was a declaration of permanence, but nothing lasts. Milo held the flashlight. I swept away spiderwebs with a rake. The basement was musty, cold, and too quiet. We could hear every footstep we took as though the house was holding its breath. He asked, "What's down here?" "Roots," I said, "the kind you don't see until they rot." The back wall had a crack running through it, jagged like a scar. I remembered that crack. It had always been there, a slow bleed across the years. I asked him once if he was going to fix it. He said, "Some things are better broken. They keep people in line." I never knew if he meant the wall or us. We chipped away at it, found mold, found old water stains, found the remnants of a broken sump pump and the rusted skeletons of paint cans. Every corner down there had a story he never told, just silence and mildew. Milo found a rusted tin box near the furnace. Inside, dog tags. Navy issue, his name, his blood type, and a smaller tag I didn't expect. Ellie. 1974. I took it from him. My hands shook. He never talked about loving her. But he carried her name anyway. Milo asked, "Did she die?" "No," I said. "She ran, like a fire, fast and bright." We sat on overturned buckets, surrounded by dust and decay. "Why didn't you run too?" I paused. The truth took its time. Because I thought staying meant I could fix it. I thought if I was strong enough, good enough, he'd change. And by the time I knew he wouldn't, I was too broken to leave. Milo stared at the dog tag. "I think I want to meet her." "Me too," I said. Back upstairs, we tore down the last door frame, the one to his study, the only room he kept locked when we were kids. We weren't allowed to enter. He said it was his sacred space. But sacred didn't mean safe. Sacred meant shut. The room smelled like old tobacco and glue. A desk still stood in the corner, drawers swollen from moisture. Milo pried them open one by one. We found blueprints, house plans, sketches of decks he never built, notes about staircases, load-bearing beams, roof pitches, all in his thick, angry handwriting. He was always building, Milo said, even when he wasn't. I nodded. He was building prisons, rooms no one could rest in, walls no one could lean against. Milo pulled out a rolled-up sheet, unfurled it. It was a plan for a second house. Bigger, cleaner, solar panels on the roof, a garden, a note in the margin. "For them, when I'm better." Milo looked up. "Do you think he ever started it?" "No," I said, "but he imagined it, and maybe that's something." That night, we started a fire in the pit again. We fed it with wood from the broken furniture, the couch, the old recliner, the busted kitchen chairs. We sat side by side, watching memories turn to ash. Milo tossed in the study's blueprints. He had his chance, he said. Now it's our turn. In the morning, I woke to the sound of Milo chopping wood. He'd found the old axe in the shed. He swung it like he'd done it 100 times. Focused, quiet. Each thud of the blade against the log felt like punctuation. He looked up, wiped sweat from his brow. "You sleep okay?" "Best yet," I said. He smiled. We spent the day cleaning what we had left. No more drywall, no more furniture. Just bones now. Studs and beams, empty frames. That night, we walked the perimeter of the property. Milo said, "Do you think this land remembers?" "It does, but it's forgiving." He stopped at the old tree where Ellie used to swing. The rope was gone, but the limb still hung like an invitation. He looked at me. "I want to build something here, for her." I swallowed hard. "Then we will." The next day we drove to town, bought lumber, hinges, fresh nails. Milo picked out paint, sky blue, said it reminded him of dreams he couldn't remember. We spent 3 days building that swing. It was simple, strong, clean. When we hung it and gave it the first push, it groaned. But it held. Milo climbed on, pumped his legs, laughed. I hadn't heard him laugh like that since he arrived, maybe ever. He swung high, then jumped off, landed hard, rolled, then popped up grinning. "You try." "I'm too old for that." "You're too scared." He was right. I climbed on, pushed off, and for the first time since I was a child, I felt the sky open above me. Felt like maybe gravity didn't always win. We ate dinner on the porch that night. Stars above, a cool breeze. Milo asked, "Do you ever miss him?" I thought about that. I miss who he could have been. Milo nodded. "Yeah, that makes sense." Later, he fell asleep with his head on my shoulder. Just like that. No words, no fuss. I didn't move. I just sat there and watched the stars shift. And I thought, maybe this is how you fix it. Maybe not with forgiveness, maybe with presence and patience and swing sets built for someone who ran away. We'd keep tearing down, keep building better, until the house became a home neither of us had ever known. One nail at a time. The house was quiet again, not the silence of fear, not the kind that curled around your ribs like wire. This was the silence of something ending, or maybe something beginning. We had stripped it down to its skeleton. Every room gutted, every wall opened. The air moved differently now, like it could finally breathe. Like we could too. Milo stood in the middle of what used to be the kitchen. "It feels bigger now," he said. "It is. We took out the parts that didn't belong." He nodded, like he understood that meant more than just cabinets and trim. I looked around at the beams, the exposed joists. The sun came in through gaps in the roof and streaked across the bare floor in golden angles. He asked, "Are we going to rebuild it?" I didn't answer right away. I walked to the window, the one that used to rattle in the wind, the one I used to stare through while waiting for the sound of tires on gravel, the slam of a car door, the thunder of footsteps. "I don't think we should," I said. "Why not?" "Because it was never ours." "Not really. Everything we fix still lives on top of what he made. I don't want to build over his bones." Milo nodded slowly. He was quiet a long time, and then he said it. "Let's tear it all down." And that's when I knew he was mine. We rented a dumpster, a massive one, red and rust-streaked, parked right on the lawn like a coffin waiting to be filled. The neighbors watched. They didn't say anything, but I could feel their eyes. Some of them probably knew, the ones who heard the shouting, the crashes, the sirens, the ones who saw me limping to the bus stop some mornings. Milo smashed the first window, didn't ask permission, didn't hesitate, just picked up a brick and hurled it through the glass. It exploded. He smiled. That felt good. Then he handed me the brick. We went room to room, window to window. Glass fell like rain. Next came the sledgehammer. I took the first swing, felt it shake up through my shoulders into my teeth. It was heavy, honest. We started on the master bedroom wall. Each hit sent drywall dust into the air like ash. By the third day, the house was a shell. Beams splintered, doors torn from their frames, every piece of it a memory turned physical, and every swing we took made it smaller. We found things we didn't expect: a baby shoe, a stack of burned photographs hidden in the crawlspace insulation, a love letter written in pencil and never sent. We didn't talk much, just worked, until the day Milo found the gun. It was tucked in a shoebox under a loose floorboard, wrapped in an old undershirt. He held it like it might bite. Was it his? Yeah. What do we do with it? We stared at it a while. "Destroy it," I said. He looked at me. "Can we?" "We have to." We took it out to the fire pit, wrapped it in chains, smashed it with the sledgehammer until it was twisted and lifeless. Then we buried it. Milo said, "You think that's enough?" "No," I said, "but it's a start." That night we drove to the coast. He'd never seen the ocean. We parked on the edge of the cliffs and watched the water crash against the rocks. Milo stood at the edge, wind ripping through his hoodie, hair in his eyes. "I thought it'd be louder," he said. "It is. You just hear it inside more than out." He tossed a rock over the cliff. We listened for the splash. We never heard it. I asked him, "Do you ever think about your mum?" He shrugged. "Sometimes. I miss her, but not in a sharp way. More like soft missing, like background noise." I nodded. "That's how I miss Ellie. Do you think she's out there?" "I hope so. If we build something new, will she come?" "Maybe. Or maybe it's enough that we would let her." We drove home in silence. The good kind. The next morning, we stood in front of what was left of the house. It leaned like it knew its time was done. Milo looked up at it. "Let's finish it." We pulled down the last walls, the last nails. We watched the chimney collapse in a puff of soot, and then it was just ground. Flat, bare, quiet. We stood in the dirt, sweating, breathing hard. It felt like standing in a scar. Milo said, "What now?" I smiled. "Now we build something that never has to be torn down." He looked at me. "Will it still hurt?" "Probably, but maybe we can turn it into something else." He nodded. That night we sat on the tailgate again, stars above us, the kind you only see in places where pain's been made honest. He leaned against me. "I think we're free now," he said, and I believed him. I really did. But even freedom has its ghosts, and we still had 4 more walls to raise and a name to carve into the doorframe. One we wouldn't be ashamed to say out loud, but for now, we rested and let the wind move through us like it was clearing out the last pieces of him. One gust at a time. We started with a single board, one clean, fresh-cut plank, sanded smooth, unstained, untouched. Milo held it like it was sacred, like it might split if we breathed wrong. We laid it across 2 sawhorses where the porch used to be. The rest of the lot was open now, cleared of debris, leveled and raked clean. Just dirt and memory. We etched the date into the edge of the board. Milo said, "Is this where it begins?" "No," I said. "This is where it belongs to us." We framed out the shed first. Not a house, just something small, something we could finish. 4 walls, a roof, a door. It wasn't about shelter. It was about proof that we could build without bruises, that structure didn't have to mean control, that hands could create more than hurt. Milo was different now. He spoke more, joked more. He still had shadows in him, but they were smaller. They didn't drive him. They followed, quieter. One afternoon, as we nailed the trusses in place, he said, "I used to think you were going to hit me." I looked at him. He wasn't accusing me, just telling the truth. "I never wanted to," I said, "but sometimes I felt it boil, like something in me wanted to rise up and take control, like him. But you didn't." "No," he nodded. "That's why I'm still here." That night, I cried into my pillow. It was the first time in years I didn't feel ashamed to. On the 5th day of building, a car pulled up the drive. A black hatchback, dust-caked, tired. I didn't recognize it, but when the door opened and she stepped out, I knew. Ellie. Older, lighter, lines around her mouth that looked like they were carved from hard laughter and grief. Her hair was shorter, her boots were still the same. Milo saw her first. "Is that?" I didn't answer. I just walked. She didn't smile, but she didn't flinch either. "I got your message," she said. "I didn't send one." She nodded. I felt it anyway. We didn't hug. We didn't cry. We just stood there, in the dirt, between what was gone and what was starting. Then she looked at Milo. "You're taller than I thought you'd be." Milo blinked. "You thought about me. Every day." They sat by the swing. I made coffee. We didn't talk about the past, not that day, but later, after she saw the empty lot, she walked to where the porch had been. She stood there a long time. "This place always needed to burn," she said. "We didn't burn it." I told her. "Better, you let it die slowly." She reached into her coat pocket and pulled out a small photo. Mom, sitting on the back steps, laughing. She smiled. "You know, before, all the time, I remember. I forgot until I found this." We nailed it to the beam of the shed, just above the doorframe, a totem, a reminder. Ellie stayed 3 days. She didn't sleep much. She walked the property like she was counting ghosts. On the second night, she found the old crawl space. "I buried my first diary under that corner," she said. "I was 12. I wrote about how I thought he had a demon in him." Milo asked, "Did he?" She shook her head. "No, just a wound he never let heal." She gave Milo a pendant before she left, a silver key. "It doesn't unlock anything," she said, "but maybe one day it will." He hugged her, tight. She hugged me too, softer. "I'm proud of you," she whispered. "You don't have to be." "I am," she said. "That house raised monsters, but you raised a boy who swings." And then she was gone. We finished the shed, painted it the blue Milo chose, hung a wind chime by the door. Inside we stacked tools neatly, clean, ordered. No locks, no secrets. It wasn't much, but it was ours. Milo painted the words above the threshold, "Begin again." He looked at me after. "You think we should build a new house?" I thought about it. "No," I said. "Let's build a story first." "What kind?" "One where the walls don't hide anything, where the floor creaks from dancing, not footsteps we fear. One with a swing, and blue paint, and a roof that listens when it rains." He nodded. "Then I'll draw the plans." And he did, all night. At the table we built from scraps of the old one. His lines were clean, no erasures, no shadows, just light, and the shape of something we'd never seen before, but always wanted. Something that looked a lot like home. It was strange, waking up without dread. There was no sound of footsteps upstairs, no door slammed too hard, no shouted names or broken glass, just the chirp of birds and the soft clink of Milo pouring cereal into a bowl. He'd started waking before me. It unnerved me at first. Years of being alert, on edge, had trained me to expect disaster when things were quiet. But there he was, barefoot, smiling, sun in his hair, asking if I wanted milk. I said yes. We ate outside on the porch steps of the shed. The lot was still empty, but something about it was full now. It was no longer a space that had lost something. It was a space waiting for what came next. He pulled out the drawings again, his plans, more refined now. Pages taped together, smudged with fingerprints and graphite. He added new rooms since the last version. A loft for guests, a reading nook, a skylight. "What's this?" I asked, pointing to a small square. "Safe room," he said. "For storms." He shook his head. "For bad feelings, just somewhere you can go until they pass." I blinked fast, didn't answer. That afternoon we started the foundation. Not concrete, wood pier and beam, raised slightly above the soil, breathable, forgiving. Milo hammered the first stake. We marked the corners, drew string lines, measured twice, measured again, not out of fear, out of care. We built slowly, on purpose, and every time I reached for a nail, I remembered how this started. Each one pulled like a memory, screaming on the way out. And now here we were, pressing them in, one by one. I wasn't afraid of the sound anymore. That night, it rained. No thunder, just steady drops. We sat in the open frame of what would be the living room. under a tarp stretched tight like a tent. It was cold, and we had blankets wrapped around our shoulders, sipping instant coffee and breathing in the scent of wet dirt and pine. Milo leaned against the beam beside me. "You think it's okay to feel happy?" I looked at him. The question wasn't small. "I think happiness is how we honor what we survived." He nodded, then after a pause, "I still think about hitting things sometimes." "I know. You, every day. What do you do instead?" I swallowed. "I build. I breathe. I remember you're watching." He didn't respond, but he didn't need to. We sat there until the rain stopped. Then we fell asleep right there, in the bones of the house. Over the next 2 weeks, the frame rose like forgiveness. We put up joists, sheathed the walls in pine. The roof was the hardest part, physically and emotionally. My father used to yell about the angles, the pitch, the goddamn beams being off. I caught myself barking instructions, saw the way Milo flinched. I stopped, dropped the tool, stepped away. "I'm sorry," I said. He nodded. "It's okay. No, it's not, but it will be." We took a break, ate grilled cheese and tomato soup under the old oak. We didn't talk much, but the silence felt honest. After lunch, Milo showed me a carving he made in one of the studs, hidden just behind what would be the drywall, just for us. It read, "We begin again, again." I ran my fingers over the letters. That extra word, again, hit harder than I expected. It meant we weren't pretending it was perfect. It meant we knew it might break, but we'd return to it anyway. Every time. That's love, I thought. Not in spite of the hurt, but alongside it. One evening, as the sunset spilled fire over the frame, Milo asked if I had any more of my father's things. I told him no, that everything worth keeping was buried, burned, or gone. But later that night, I remembered the tape, one last VHS. I'd hidden it deep in the shed behind a false wall. Couldn't bring myself to throw it away. Didn't know why. We watched it together. It was footage of me, age 6, building a birdhouse with him. He was calm, patient, coaching, not yelling. He even laughed. Milo watched quietly, then said, "That's the version of him you keep chasing." I nodded. "Yeah. Is it real?" "It was, once, just not often." We didn't burn that one. We buried it, next to the dog tags, together, not as tribute, but as witness. The roof was finished by week's end. We painted the front door yellow. Milo's idea, said it looked like warmth. We hung wind chimes above the threshold, made from rusted nails we'd pulled from the old house. Each chime was a past wound, singing instead of screaming. The floor creaked in places. We left it that way. "It's honest," Milo said. "Houses should be honest." On the last day of construction, we stood on the porch. He handed me a nail. "Just one. Want to do the last one?" I looked at it, heavy in my hand, familiar. I hammered it into the top beam, firm, clean. When it was done, we both exhaled. The wind picked up, the chimes sang, and something inside me, tight for decades, let go. Not all the way, but enough. Enough to believe we'd built something that would hold and hold us, even when the past tried to seep back in, even when memory came knocking with old bruises. We had this, and we were still building. One breath, one beam, one beginning again. We didn't move in right away, not because the house wasn't ready, but because we weren't, not fully. It's hard to cross a threshold when you've spent your life learning how to brace for impact. So we visited it each day, like a place of worship, cleaned the floors again, adjusted the way the light filtered through the curtains. We didn't talk about what it meant to step inside and call it home. We just waited for it to feel right. Then one morning, Milo came to me with a duffel bag over his shoulder. "I packed," he said. "I want to move in." I didn't ask what he packed. I just nodded, went upstairs, and folded a few shirts, put them beside the last photo I had of my mother, the one Ellie gave me, the one with the back step and the summer sun. That afternoon we moved in. The first night was quiet. No TV, no distractions, just the groan of new wood settling, and our own breath filling space we had once feared to claim. We each chose a room. Milo picked the one that got the morning light. He said it made him feel like he was waking up somewhere good. I chose the smallest room. It wasn't humility. It was that I didn't need space to stretch out. I needed space to feel held. We slept like people who had earned it. 3 days later, I heard him yelling. Not at me, not even at anything, just yelling. Rage, raw and real, bouncing off the walls. I didn't go to him right away. I sat at the kitchen table, counted to 30. Then I stood. When I reached his door, I knocked. Once. He opened it, face red, eyes glassy. "I don't know what happened," he said. "I was just sitting there and then it felt like everything was on fire inside me." I nodded. "That still happens to me too." He dropped his head. "I didn't break anything," he whispered. "I know, I wanted to, but you didn't." I reached for him. He came into my arms like a tide breaking. We stood there a long time. "I think I need the safe room," he said. We sat in it together, just us, quiet, no fixing, just being. He slept there that night, curled up with a blanket, a flashlight, and the silver key Ellie gave him. When he woke in the morning, he came to the porch with a new drawing. "A treehouse," he said. "Next." I laughed. We started it the following weekend, high in the oak, the same one that used to hold a swing Ellie clung to like it was the only place gravity couldn't reach her. We built it with scrap wood and new wood. We measured each piece, let Milo take the lead. It took a month, but when we were done, it felt like childhood reimagined. Inside, Milo painted a mural, a mountain, a river, a boy and a man walking toward it. He called it After. In the middle of October, Ellie came back. This time she brought someone, a woman named Sarah, soft eyes, calloused hands. They laughed easily together. We had dinner on the porch. Ellie handed me an envelope. Inside were copies of pages from her old diary, the one she buried. "I thought you should know what it felt like," she said. "I do," I whispered. "Then read them anyway." Later that night I did. Each page bled pain, but between the lines there were moments of wonder, descriptions of stars through a crack in the attic window, the way rain sounded on the crawlspace roof, how she used to count ceiling tiles when she was scared. "I survived," one entry said, "but I want more than survival. I want to belong." I left the pages in the safe room. I wanted Milo to find them. When he was ready, the house started to fill up, not with people, but with meaning. Photos went up. Books found shelves. Milo planted sunflowers out front. We built a bench beneath the kitchen window, a place to sit with coffee and watch the world not end. Sometimes we argued, sometimes we got it wrong, but always we circled back. Always we returned to the nail, the one on the porch, the last one we drove in together. He called it our anchor. One night I found a new carving beside the first. Even anchors drift a little. I smiled, because that's what we were learning, not how to stop the drift, but how to return again, and again, and again. It ended the way all stories worth keeping do, not with finality, but with continuation. The house stood now, not as proof that we'd survived, but as a question answered. Not did we endure, but what do we do with what we endured? Milo painted the back wall of the treehouse again, this time a bridge. It stretched from the treehouse to the roof of our home. Symbolic, he said, of how we carry childhood forward, not just outgrow it. He added clouds, a sun, and two stick figures, hands outstretched, touching fingertips across the span. It wasn't subtle, it was perfect. Ellie sent postcards now, sometimes just a word, breathing, sometimes whole paragraphs, descriptions of mountains she was hiking. Mornings spent in bookstores. One time, a nap on a stranger's porch because it reminded her of ours. She always signed them, still beginning again. We kept each one tacked to the fridge with a magnet Milo made in art class. We'd stopped chasing normal. That was the thing. It wasn't about becoming someone new, it was about making peace with who we were. Each scar, each silence, each moment we flinched but stayed. There was a night, deep in winter, where Milo woke me from a dream I couldn't escape. I'd been back in the old house, not the way it was when we tore it down, but how it existed in memory, dim, echoing, full of breath I didn't own. He sat at the edge of my bed. "You were crying," he said. "I'm okay. You don't have to be." We sat in silence until my chest stopped shaking. "I used to think I'd never be different than him," I whispered. "That rage was blood, that it was inevitable." Milo leaned his head on my shoulder. "It isn't," he said. "We're proof." And then after a pause, "Sometimes I still feel it too. I know, we all do, but now I think of the treehouse. I go there in my head. The mural, the bridge, that's good. It helps me stop." We didn't speak again. He just stayed. Sometimes staying is the only thing that matters. Spring came, sunflowers bloomed. Milo repainted the porch swing, yellow again. I started carving again. Nothing fancy, just small things. A spoon, a handle, a frame. My hands still shook sometimes, but they weren't afraid of themselves anymore. One afternoon, I found him in the safe room. He'd hung Ellie's pages on the wall, no longer hidden, no longer waiting to be found. "I think this is what healing looks like," he said. I asked, "What does it feel like?" He looked around, took a deep breath, like air. That doesn't choke. On the anniversary of the day we tore the house down, we held a small fire, just us. We brought pieces of what remained, the hammer, some rusted nails, old blueprints, even the broken chain from the weapon we destroyed. We didn't burn them. We placed them in a glass box. We buried it near the oak. We planted a tree over it, a red maple. Milo called it the memory tree. A marker sat at the base, a single phrase carved into stone. Not forgotten, just no longer feared. And so we lived. Some days were heavy, some days were light, but all days were honest. That's what we gave each other. Not perfection, presence, not healing as a destination, but as a ritual, a practice, a nail driven in slowly, patiently, without rage, a house built on nothing but breath and will. And every time we pulled a new board, every time we raised a wall or opened a window, we asked the same question, does this hold? And if it did, we let it. If it didn't, we tried again, and again, and again, because that's what it means to be more than what hurt you. It means refusing to hand down the hammer. It means building with open hands instead. It means turning a fistful of nails into a home, and letting your son grow inside it free. It means becoming the man your father could have been, and forgiving yourself for the time it took to get there. The house stands now. It's not perfect, but it holds, and so do we.